cocktail sessions, educational and inspirational talks from experienced startup founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders.
So, all right, so first, why don't we start off with, can you tell everyone a little bit about KUFers and your inspiration for it?
Sure. So the term KUFers is actually a made-up term. Started at Virginia Tech, and back in the 1940s and 50s, fraternities and sororities put old exams and study guides inside of coffers, which were like treasure chests. And students started referring to those materials themselves as coffers, and the C changed to a K. So when I was in school, you would go, hey, do you have the Math 101 KUFer? Meaning, do you have the old exam to study from? So I was not in a fraternity. I didn't have an older brother who went to Virginia Tech. So I was at a disadvantage, right? You know, compared to the people in the Greek life and any other clubs. So I wanted to create a website that basically put them online. And so the main primary goal was to level the playing field and create free and equal access for all students.
So I think one of the most interesting things about how you started your company is how your team came together. Can you tell us a little bit about how you all found each other?
Sure, yeah, that's an interesting story. So when I had the idea, I said, okay, I'm going to buy kufers.com and put old exams online. And so I went to kufers.com, and there's all these pictures of a family and Christmas, and you know, there's a new baby born, and I was like, oh my gosh, the Kufer family owns this. They're never going to sell it to me, right? So I did a Whois lookup. I emailed the owner. Turns out Glenn Lopresti owned the domain name. So I'm like, why is Mr. Lopresti own Kufers with their family? And so he was a Virginia Tech alumni and had the same idea of putting old exams in the 90s. He just never got around to it, really. So he just sat on the domain name. I reached out to him, and so we got connected. You know, I think I was like 20 years old. He was old. He's gonna yell at me for saying it, but old. He was like 33 or something at the time.
Yeah.
So it's like the really old guy when you're in college. So we got together. You know, he had a lot of experience in the private world, in the private sector. He had money. I didn't in college. So I was like, perfect. And he has an engineering background, and I'm a kind of business kind of coder. I can't code. So the third person, talking about how we all got together, we got an email from somebody creating kufers.net and kufers.org going, hey, can I have the .com? You know, I want to use it for this project. And he was doing the same exact thing, except he was a computer science student, so he could actually code it. You know, I can make it kind of look okay, but he makes actually search, and I don't know how to do that. He's really smart. So you know, we met with him, and we go, your .net and .org have no chance. The .com is going to kill you. You need to join forces with us. So that's how the three of us got together. You know, it's really cool because we're all Virginia Tech alumni, and but we all didn't know each other. So it was really cool. It was all our own idea, and we all feel like we own it, and we can yell at each other and go home, and you know, we make up over time. But it's cool. We don't know each other, but we're best friends now.
So once you got going, you actually ended up going to DC and being part of a program. Can you tell us just a little bit about the path that you took, and you raised some money? And
So we were the first graduating class of Launchbox Digital in 2008 in Washington, D.C. So this was when, you know, Y Combinator and Techstars were, you know, hot, you know, and becoming the big things before there was like 5,000 clones. So we applied for that in Washington, D.C. We also were thinking about applying to Y Combinator, but we go, hey, D.C., that's where we're based out of. So we got accepted. I turned down a job offer out of college at Sprint where I interned, and I went kind of all in as a recent graduate and did a summer program in Washington, D.C. with the Launchbox folks. And then at the demo day, we pitched on the East Coast and West Coast, and were introduced to investors that were interested, and we ultimately raised a $2 million seed round, and all of us went full time. All the other co-founders quit their real jobs and joined.
so what were some of your biggest lessons? I know there were some scaling things in there.
Yeah, so it's a big roller coaster, as probably a lot of you know as entrepreneurs. Lots of really high highs and really low lows, and like literally within 4 hours of each other. So I'm like, we're gonna kill Google, and then we're like, oh, we're gonna be unemployed in 4 hours, right? I mean, it's like crazy. But some of the ups and downs are regarding kind of scaling, right? We did the classic startup mistake. We prematurely scaled. So the Startup Genome folks, startupgenome.co, did a survey with over 3,200 companies' data, startup data, and analyzed it and found 70% of startups fail because they prematurely scale. And kind of with hindsight now, looking at that data, I'm like, we kind of did that. So we prematurely scaled our campuses. We went after, instead of targeting 50 and doing 50 really well, we went over, we attacked 1,000, right? We kind of prematurely scaled our employees. We went from 5 to 15. We brought on the heavy hitters and, to take it to the next level. So learned a lot on that front.
What made you decide to bring on a CEO?
It's interesting. He was the heavy hitter, right? He really understood how to. He had great AOL experience. We knew each other from the DC days, and he has just phenomenal experience. The CEO we brought on board, and it was really just to grow the business and scale. And so that was part of that scaling, with employees and the growth. I wouldn't say it was a huge mistake, but we could have done it a little bit differently.
Okay, so you took the funding,
Yep.
You scaled, didn't work. So tell us a little bit about what happened once you realized that this isn't going to work out. Because you're still here today.
Yeah, I'm still here. So somehow, and I think I'm going to kill Google, and then I'm going to be unemployed tomorrow. So we were actually selling the business. We were going through an acquisition, and it wasn't a home run for the investors, but we were getting a good chunk of their change back, right? And we're all going to go, oh, we tried, let's part ways and move on to the next thing. So we signed a letter of intent with a company. We were 45, 60 days into due diligence. We were going into the new company to sign our employee compensation packages and see our new offices. And we're going in, we're like, oh, this is going to be fun, 6-figure job, no more ramen. And we go in and they're like, yeah, we changed our mind. We're not going to buy you anymore. So it was about 1.5 years or almost 2 years ago. And it was Thanksgiving time. And it was probably the worst 72 hours of my life. It was just rock bottom. We had to fire the remaining 6 or 7 people, including ourselves, with no notice. 2 days. We're like, we're out of money in 2 days. Sorry, you got to go home. It was Thanksgiving and Christmas, so it was a hard time. But after that 72 hours was over, I tried to be optimistic, and I said, well, I'm going to enjoy time with my family on Thanksgiving and Christmas. And then I realized I always had this dream to buy an RV and go across the country, so I did it. I bought an RV, and me and my best friend and his little puppy dog went in a cross-country road trip, 40 days across the country, 10,000 miles in a big circle. So I just took some personal time off. And you can go to Rihani, V, so my last name, V.com, you get it, RV.com kind of thing, if you want to check out the pictures and everything I did. But then I came back, and I interviewed at all these different companies, and I was just going to work on Kufers nights and weekends. But then we decided, we can't do that, we got to go all in. So we offered to, after the acquisition kind of fell through, we kind of pitched our investors, and we go, hey, we want to buy back the business. We still believe in this, and we haven't launched this big new enterprise tool where all the money is going to be. So a big key thing that's really important to us is we had awesome investors. When we first took the money on thefunded.com, New Atlantic Ventures is one of the #1 best venture capital funds. So just having really good investors, we're extremely grateful for that, because they did allow us to buy it back. So we put a good amount of our life savings into it. For the past 1.5 years, I've been making $0 a month because that's how much we believe in it. And things are working out.
Awesome. All of your investors, are they all East Coast based?
No, we have 3 on the East Coast and 1 out west, Palo Alto.
And they were still cool too.
They're all still cool. Yeah.
Awesome. So, what's your next big move for the company?
So we launched a employer-based connection enterprise tool to connect students with jobs, internships, and jobs. So we are, for the first time in 7 years, bootstrap profitable is what I'm calling it. We can kind of pay the bills. We're still not making crazy amounts of money, so we're learning a lot about the enterprise space and quickly, scaling our sales and strategy in that regard. So we'll still see how that pans out and where the future takes us. But we're bullish on it. We're excited, and we're in a much better place than we were even a year and a half ago. So it's still a startup, and it's still fun.
Cool. So I think we're going to open it up to a few questions. I think Camilla might have. I'm going to give you my mic.
Thank you. So Michael, how did you deal with the intellectual property of exams that were probably stolen or plagiarized to begin with? How did that all work? How were you able to overcome that?
Sure, it's a little bit of a gray area. We dealt a lot of, I'm like an expert in intellectual property, and one of the reasons we hired, a CEO was he had a Harvard law degree in intellectual property, right? That's another benefit of this one individual we hired. From day one, we knew it was an issue, and I never, ever wanted to create a website that helped anybody cheat, right? I legitimately wanted to have this be a great study tool, and Virginia Tech actually promoted the use of CUFERS, and they said you should study these old exams because it's a good insight into how the professor teaches, their questions, and what's from the book, what's from their lecture. So it's a great tool to use, but if done incorrectly, and if there's a stolen exam, right, that's terrible. So we took that very, very seriously from day one, and we never wanted to create a shortcut for learning and education. We want to improve higher education, and we sincerely meant that and still do today. So one example is we're very proactive. We're not reactive. We reach out to all the honor codes and universities and say, hey, we're coming onto your campus. This is what we do. Your faculty handbook says this, this, and this, right? And we even went above and beyond. There's a National Center for Academic Integrity in Clemson, and now it's the global one. And many universities look to that honor code as the de facto kind of standard. And so we reached out to them and we said, hey, can we join? And they said, well, no, we just only universities join. And we go, well, we want to be a company and we want to attend your conferences. So we were the first company to be entered as a member into the global, honor code. So just being very proactive and being very genuine in our mission.
Thank you.
Sure.
Oh, sorry.
Hi, so you were talking about internships earlier that were offered through your company. What kind of domain and what kind of companies are you working with?
Sure. So, we just launched that a few months ago, and in enterprise sales, on average, it takes 9 meetings to close a deal. So we have about less than a dozen companies on board right now, either paying us or in a free trial. But we're mostly going after, Fortune 1000 companies that have college recruiting departments, right? And any company that shows up to a career fair and has a booth, they should have our software. So we're piloting with AOL. We've done some pretty large deals with these Fortune 1000 kind of companies, but we're also trying to carve out and see if there's a product used for small, medium-sized businesses. My dad owns a civil engineering firm, and they need one accountant, right? We can get him in touch with accounting students within 50 miles of his headquarters and get him a great accounting entry-level position. So we're exploring and dabbling, testing that area right
now. When you first started CUFERS, what was your revenue model, and how did you select that?
Interesting question, and that's a big lesson that I've learned. Every new startup I have is like, it makes money from day one, any new ideas I have. So we had 3 in mind, so I'll quickly go through them, and it's in our pitch deck in Launchbox Digital, right? 2008, it was the same game plan. So number 1 was we're gonna sell textbooks to students, right? Because we know what classes they're in, and we're just gonna refer them to what books they need. So we created a kind of like Orbitz and Kayak.com for textbook price comparison, and we get a 8 to 10% affiliate lead from Amazon, Chegg, Book Runner, all those types of companies. So we launched that. It pays some server bills. It helps students save time and money buying their books, and we get 10%. So the second one was we had the idea of doing hyperlocal advertising. So we're the second biggest website behind Facebook at many of our college campuses. And they log in at Virginia Tech on average 16 times per semester. So it's a very active community, and we have 98% of Virginia Tech using the service. So I used to work at the college newspaper, and I was just blown away on hundreds of thousands of dollars were being spent locally, and the bars and restaurants and apartment complexes. So we thought we would kind of do a Yelp model for local directories, and you could rate your professors, but then you could also rate the barbershop and different apartment complexes. Then Living Social and Groupon exploded, and Living Social and Tim O'Shaughnessy was one of our mentors in Launchbox Digital, and so we, instead of going the Yelp route, we went the Living Social route, and we did campus deals. So we did daily deals on campus. Long story short, didn't really work out. The return on investment wasn't really there. So our second revenue model is just falling back to advertising. And so the third one is the biggest one that we've always known, but we kind of had the chicken before the egg problem, is that recruiting tool and the internship and job matching. So about 80% of our revenue today is coming from the recruiter tool that we use, and 20% advertising. So those are kind of the three that we tried. We're really leaning in on the last one, the recruiting tool.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So I went to Virginia Tech a couple years after you did, and I remember the T-shirt marketing was like one of the primary marketing things, and then visiting your office years later, and you guys had like thousands of T-shirts stacked in this room, and they were all different colors for all these college campuses and stuff. I'm kind of interested just like in reflecting on that and kind of that as a major marketing tactic, like what was effective about that and what wasn't effective about that, and would you have tried that again?
Sure. So we're a very data-driven company. So we have the official school colors of every single school in our database of 4,000 schools. So we've figured out that 21 different color combinations will look like and will cover 98% of schools. So red and black is Stanford, University of Maryland, all these schools, and so it says Cougars and it's red and black and white, and you wear it to a football game and you think it's a University of Maryland shirt, right? Virginia Tech is maroon and orange. It's like the only place that's maroon and orange. It was that one where like, that's why it's 21, right? So, we're like, we need a Virginia Tech one. But so we just looked at data and we said we can cover 98% of schools with 20 t-shirt combinations. And then the short answer is we were just trying to figure out, what do college students love? And all college students love free stuff and free swag and cool looking shirts, especially in your university colors. So using data to make it more personalized, it's worn more often. And we, kind of accidentally almost built a really powerful brand really with the t-shirts being the main thing fostering that. And it's really kind of crazy to think looking back, because people love Cougars, on college campuses, and they love wearing the shirts, and they almost like they die for the shirts. And it's a website that helps you study. It's like the most boring thing. Like nobody wants to, like, oh, I'm gonna go study on this website, but they love it, right? And it's a cool brand, and so I think that's pretty cool accomplishment we got with those. The downside, they're expensive, and you have to inventory them and ship them, and we became like a printing company. My brother owns a screen print business, so we got him a lot of business, which is a good thing. But you really have to measure your return. So we literally calculated that we could print a shirt and physically mail it to somebody, pay us $2, print it for $4, mail it for $2. And we, $6, but $6, and this is when Facebook was kind of going crazy. We were the first 10 websites to integrate Facebook Connect, and so when Zynga blew up and had that viral loop, we said, okay, we'll give you a free shirt if you invite all of your friends in college to Cougars. So we would pay $6, and we would get 5 new users. So it was like $1.25 user acquisition cost, plus 40,000 students rocking our billboard in university colors. So you have to be very data-driven with the approach. You can't just print shirts and just hope it works. We were very analytical with it. So. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for this. Really enjoyed being here. Thank you for your time.
Mike, thank you. Oh, you still shake my hand. Thank you.